Last night's episode of The View descended into unprecedented chaos when Steve Martin was forcibly removed from the studio after Whoopi Goldberg accused him of coasting on nostalgia and suggested his comedy had become geriatric entertainment for people afraid of modern humor. The comedy legend didn't just defend his craft. He delivered a masterful deconstruction of The View's manufactured outrage that left Whoopi speechless and ABC facing serious questions about their daytime flagship. But what started as promotion for Martin's new theatrical production would reveal something darker about how The View treats comedy legends who refuse to adopt their brand of divisive discourse. The ABC studios carried palpable tension from the moment Martin arrived. The 79-year-old comedian was there to discuss his new play exploring the philosophy of humor across generations. But The View's producers had prepared something entirely different. A production assistant later revealed that Whoopi had specifically instructed them to challenge his relevance and ask why old white men still dominate comedy. The warm-up audience coordinator had been priming the crowd with comments about comedy evolving past banjo jokes and dinosaurs who refused to retire. Multiple staffers expressed deep discomfort with the planned ambush, with one longtime producer reportedly saying, "Steve Martin is comedy royalty. This is wrong," only to be overruled by Whoopi personally. Therefore, when the cameras rolled, Martin was walking into a calculated assault on his entire career disguised as cultural criticism. The show opened with typical hot topics, but Whoopi made several pointed comments about comedians who haven't evolved since the 70s and entertainment that belongs in museums, not on stages. Martin waited backstage with his characteristic calm, though staffers noticed him carefully observing the monitor with what one described as scholarly attention. His publicist would later reveal that Martin had actually researched The View's recent controversial moments, telling his team, "They survive on conflict. Let's see how they handle someone who refuses to provide it." When Whoopi finally announced, "Please welcome Steve Martin," he walked out with his signature gentle demeanor, his white hair and suit giving him an almost professorial appearance that contrasted sharply with the show's chaotic energy. "Steve, welcome to The View." Whoopi began with apparent warmth that didn't reach her eyes. Still doing the same act after all these years? The condescension was immediate. Martin's expression didn't change, but his response carried subtle steel. "Still asking the same questions after all these years," he replied mildly. The audience laughed, but Whoopi's face tightened. "I'm asking if comedy needs to evolve. Yours seems stuck in amber," she said. Interesting perspective from someone whose EGOD includes work from 40 years ago. Should we discuss evolution or selective memory? Martin responded calmly. "We're discussing whether your comedy is still relevant," Whoopi pressed. "Relevance is determined by audiences, not talk show hosts. My shows sell out. Your ratings are declining. Which one of us has a relevance problem?" Martin observed quietly. Therefore, the philosophical battle was engaged with Martin's characteristic understated precision. Joy Behar tried to intervene, sensing danger. "Steve, we respect your legacy," she began. "No, you don't. You invited me here to mock that legacy. The difference is, I expected it." "You didn't expect me to respond," Martin interrupted gently. He stood up slowly, his movement deliberate but unthreatening. "You know what's fascinating about this show? You've confused cruelty with conversation. You think attacking guests is journalism. It's not. It's just rudeness with better lighting," he said. "We challenge people," Whoopi said defensively. "You ambush people. There's a difference between challenging ideas and attacking persons. You've forgotten the distinction. Or maybe you never knew it," Martin replied. But then he revealed something that changed everything. "Your former producer called me yesterday. Warned me you plan to attack my age, my race, my relevance. Said you specifically wanted to, quote, take down another old white guy. Is that challenging or just prejudice?" he said. Whoopi's face went from defensive to alarmed. "That's not true," she said. "Should we call them? They're watching. They have recordings of your production meetings. Want to hear what you really say about your guests?" Martin suggested. The threat of exposed production meetings was devastating. The other hosts looked nervous. But Martin continued with surgical precision. "You know what your problem is, Whoopi? You've been in this chair so long you've forgotten what creativity is. You react to other people's work. You judge other people's art. But when did you last create something original? He asked. I'm an EGOT winner, Whoopi said desperately. Was. Past tense. What have you created lately besides controversy? What have you contributed besides criticism? I'm still writing, still performing, still creating. You're still sitting, still judging, still consuming, Martin observed. He turned to the audience, and this is where something important happens. There are artists watching who've been told they're too old, too irrelevant, too yesterday. Don't believe it. Art doesn't age. Creativity doesn't expire. If this resonates with you, share this moment. Comment your support for artists of all ages. Like this video to spread the message that creativity has no expiration date. Your engagement might encourage another artist who's been told they're past their prime. Sometimes sharing these truths helps others keep creating despite criticism, he said directly to the camera. The audience response was immediate and powerful. Many stood and applauded. Others nodded vigorously in agreement. But Whoopi, cornered and desperate, made things worse. At least I'm not doing the same tired act from 1975, she said nastily. Martin laughed, genuinely amused. My tired act includes writing for The New Yorker, composing music that's won Grammys, authoring best-selling novels, and creating original theatrical works. Your act is sitting in that chair criticizing people who actually create. Which one is tired? He asked. You don't understand modern culture, Whoopi claimed. I understand that culture isn't determined by daytime television. I understand that longevity comes from quality, not controversy. I understand that real artists create while critics just critique, Martin replied. He moved closer to her position. You want to know what's really sad? You were an artist once. A brilliant one. But you've chosen this, sitting here tearing down others, over creating something yourself. That's not evolution. That's devolution, he said. How dare you? Whoopi began to stand. How dare I what? Point out that you've become everything you used to satirize? That you've gone from challenging power to wielding it petulantly? That you've transformed from artist to attack dog? Martin asked. The questions hung in the air. Whoopi couldn't answer without confirming his point. But she made her fatal error. Security, remove him, she said, her voice shaking with rage. The audience exploded in protest. Having security remove Steve Martin for defending artistic integrity was catastrophic. People stood and booed Whoopi loudly. Some headed for exits. You're having security remove me for discussing creativity? Please, proceed. Let everyone see what this show really is, Martin said calmly. Two security guards approached, but seemed deeply reluctant. One whispered, I'm sorry, Mr. Martin. I love the jerk. Martin smiled warmly. No apologies necessary. You're doing your job. She's failing at hers, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. He looked at Whoopi one last time. You know what the tragedy is? You have this platform, this influence, and you use it to tear down rather than build up. You could celebrate creativity. Instead, you attack it. You could inspire artists. Instead, you insult them, he said. Get out, Whoopi said, barely controlling her anger. I'm leaving. But first, understand this. You've just had security remove Steve Martin for defending artistic integrity. That's your legacy now. Not your EGOT. Not your films. This moment, attacking an artist for being an artist, he said. He walked toward the exit with dignity, then turned back. Oh, and Whoopi, my new play? It's about how criticism without creation is just sophisticated destruction. Thank you for proving my thesis, he said. He left to thunderous, sustained applause. The entire audience gave him a standing ovation. Many walked out with him. The show couldn't continue normally. Within minutes, #MartinExposes Whoopi was trending globally. The clip of security being called on a comedy legend went viral instantly. Artists across all mediums rallied behind Martin, sharing their own experiences of being dismissed as irrelevant. But the real impact came from older artists who felt validated. Martin had articulated something they'd felt but couldn't always express. That creativity doesn't have an expiration date. That longevity is achievement, not failure. That those who create are superior to those who only critique. The View returned from commercial without Whoopi. Joy awkwardly explained she was indisposed, but everyone knew the truth. She'd been exposed and couldn't face it. The next day brought severe consequences. Comedy legends collectively condemned The View. Billy Crystal, Martin Short, and others announced they'd never appear on the show. The comedy community essentially blacklisted The View. ABC faced immediate crisis. How could they justify keeping a show that attacked Steve Martin for being Steve Martin? Sponsors targeting older demographics withdrew support. The network panicked. Martin's response was characteristically elegant. He published a piece in the New Yorker titled The Death of Discourse, never mentioning Whoopi by name, but describing how certain television programs have replaced conversation with combat, turning guests into gladiators for ratings. The piece went viral, becoming required reading in journalism schools. It sparked a broader conversation about the difference between challenging interviews and ambush television. Whoopi attempted to address it the next day, claiming Martin had misunderstood her questions. But the internet had the receipts. The contrast between her attack and his dignity was undeniable. The incident became known as the Martin Method, responding to aggression with articulate calm, to cruelty with clarity, to attacks with analysis. It became a masterclass in maintaining dignity under fire. Years later, The View would undergo complete restructuring, with Whoopi's role significantly diminished. The era of ambush questioning ended, largely due to the Martin incident. But that night, all anyone saw was Steve Martin refusing to be diminished for his age, his race, or his longevity. Refusing to accept that evolution meant destruction. Refusing to let creation be mocked by those who only consume. He'd been kicked off the show, but he'd kicked down the entire facade of The View's supposed cultural authority. The security guards who'd escorted him revealed later that they'd asked for his autograph backstage, with one saying, "You're a legend. She's just angry." That respect became the lasting image. Steve Martin, removed for defending artistic integrity, walking away with grace while Whoopi sat fuming, exposed as someone who'd chosen criticism over creativity, judgment over joy, attacking over creating. The empty chair he left represented every artist told they were irrelevant, every creator dismissed for their age, every person who'd chosen to make rather than mock. And Whoopi Goldberg, the EGOT winner who'd stopped creating, was exposed as exactly what Martin had called her, someone who'd devolved from artist to attack dog, from creator to critic, from relevant to resentful. The difference was absolute. Martin continued creating across multiple mediums. Whoopi continued sitting in the same chair. One had been forcibly removed from a show. The other had been permanently removed from artistic credibility. Everyone watching understood which removal actually mattered. The man who'd been kicked off had proven that creativity outlasts criticism, that making outlasts mocking, that Steve Martin at 79 was infinitely more relevant than The View would ever be.